Hi everybody, Carol here. These are the impossible cards I've made in the past. I named them Sunburst, Vacation. This one's Nature. The next one is Galoshes and Raindrops. And then the final one is Dogs. If you haven't seen them and you want to go back, they're on my YouTube channel. And today I'm going to make another one in this series. And it's going to be called At the Shore. And this is the stamp set right here. It's called Shore Thing, S-H-O-R-E. And this is going to be another vacation type card. And I'll show you my measurements. I make a 5x7 card. I divide it in half visually, the long-wise, landscape-wise. And the bottom half I make 2.5 by 3.5, which would be half of the card. But what I'm showing is I made some templates, and I would draw both templates in because by sheer nature, and these flaps up here, I make them 1 3/4 inches wide. You can make them any size you want. But I would do both sides because by just nature of the thickness of the lead or the pencil, things like that, they can overlap. So I'm showing up really close. See how you actually get two different lines. And so if I were to cut with scissors or the trimmer, I would cut right down the middle. Actually, on the trimmer, it'll do the measurement for you. And then those flaps at the top, you can see where when the cuts with the trimmer, it cuts right down the middle. And on the top, cut to the inside of that line. There's the trimmer cut with the actual measurement, and you can see that it's slightly to the inside of that line. So if you need it to be accurate, that's just something to think about. Or I should say exact. It might not matter a bit. Now I'm making a card base here in white, but I'm going to top it with some splotchy beige brown paper that will look beachy. And I cut two pieces. They already have glue on them that are dried, so I'll show you that in a minute. I will put it down. But if you wanted to do something like that and make some extra flaps, just for the right hand side and the left hand side, again with that 3.5-inch measurement, you can interlock those with like a backwards, or the L and a half of a T. My measurements being 3.5 and 1 4/8 ends up being 5 1/4 going across. Of course, I still have my regular 5-inch measurement on the side because it's a 5x7 card. But this way, you just have them right there. All you have to do is just make your 3 cuts, and you've got both pieces. And I did go ahead and cut those on the trimmer just to be accurate, but you don't have to. You can use your scissors, draw your lines, and do the same thing. Draw both sets of lines. Now, if you'll see, the pieces I cut out, see when you have your impossible card, you need one set, the big piece to be at the bottom. When you flip it back, you need the big piece to be at the top. And so that's why that works out so well to do it that way. Now this base card here, I'm just going to put it on the scoreboard, and I'm not mashing hard here, but when I get to the 1 3/4 inch mark, I'm going to mark between the two tabs at the 2.5 mark, because that's halfway for a 5x7. My trimmer doesn't, I can't get an accurate cut. I don't know how to judge it with the way it is, so I go back and cut with my scissors till I get to the 2.5-inch mark. Then it is interchangeable. And what I do is put my thumb on the big right-hand side bottom and my index finger on the right-hand side tab, and I push with my thumb and pull with my index finger. Actually, I'm pushing with both, but one backward and one forward. And that just flips it, twists it, line up those edges, and do a fold down, a mark down. You could use your bone folder if you wanted to. And this is a good time to erase those lines if you made any. And but that is, now when you flip it, you will see that's what makes it an impossible card. Now I'm going to glue these pieces down, but before I do, I'll show you that I take the makeup sponge and go all the way around the edges, and with a neutral ink, and just kind of outline those pieces give them an edge and make them have a finished look, in my opinion. Now here is where you flip the card to make it impossible, and that's why you need those shapes to be interlocking, and that's why it has to be cut that way. Those have been decorated and stamped with this little sand stamp. It looks like sand, and I use it with a light tan ink, and there is the little chair that sits out on the sand, and I'm just showing how I make little templates to show the shoreline. You can see the water back behind that chair. I'm just saying that if you make a template and you do it, you might as well go ahead and cut one out and save it for the future. Now on this chair, I stamped another one in red besides the black, so I could cut out the red stripe canvas seat and glue it on there, and it just gives another dimension, another color, and brightens it up. And so I like that a lot. I use Tombow repositionable glue, mono multi, so this way, and put it on there on the back. And when it's white and it's still wet, you wait until it dries and it becomes clear, and then it's repositionable. You can pull it up and down and straighten all that. Now here is my sand stamp that I'm using with this light tan color, and I put it all over these pieces, but I'm showing that I stamp it off first. It came on a little dark, just straight from the ink pad. So I stamp it off on a scrap piece of paper, then put it on my brown. I will show you what it looks like if you don't stamp it off, and you can see how much darker it is. And that's okay. In fact, I put a few of those around just to give some variety. But now I'm going to put the glue on the back of that chair centerpiece. And then these already have been glued, and this is my ocean or my sea. Gluing it down on the top, and on another way you could do it would be to glue it from behind. So I'm just showing both ways. This one I line up and put it under the shoreline, and of course I'll have to go back and cut that part off. It's just whichever way you prefer to do it. Now I'm going to show you how I got that line. I'm lining that chair piece, centerpiece up with the way it will be on the center, and I'm showing how I make the connection. I'm thinking, well, where do I draw this shoreline? And that's how, and now I line it up with the left hand side. There's where the shoreline, that's how I made that decision as to where to put it. Now you can see that curves behind that chair, so I just made a reasonable facsimile of that same shoreline. And then this way, when I glue it down and then you open it up, it will be reasonably the same shoreline. So now we'll flip it back the way it will generally set up on the table. And another stamp in this is the actual shore birds. So I just did a long strip of shore birds, cut it to where it would fit, and I was just showing the back side is plain, but the front side has some of the little sand stamp. Gluing it on both sides. You could use white paper with sand. You could use dark paper with sand. You could put the shore birds on white paper with sand, and then I was just showing a little trick. You could do it in the shorebird on 2 different colors, or anything for that matter, and then just cut out a section and glue it on, and it just adds some interest if you want to ever try that on another card. If you line it up just exactly, it's kind of an optical illusion. How did that happen? I'll show you up close, and it's a fun technique to use on anything if you want to divide the colors. So we'll go right on to the rest of the decorations. They're a sand pail, and I decided to go ahead and cut that out because it would be hard to stamp on that tan and put it down, but I did color in with a tan colored pencil behind in the middle of that handle so it would look as if the sand was showing through. I did a crab in orange. We had some seashells and starfish. They could be moved all around. The other side that's going to flip, I like my cards to be interactive so the recipient can flip the card back and forth. So I want that underneath side to be different so that you can tell that it is different. So I just made this one white with some sand. Another bucket, a sand pail. I'm showing that the way you can do, if you have to cut that little crab out, to me it's easier to color the sand behind it. You can go back and color it behind it once it's cut out, but if you go ahead and put that sand color all around it and then cut it out, it makes it so much easier. And you can also, of course, color up your bucket if you want to. Then I got a little sentiment that just said happy. It could be anything, and glued it on there, and now we're flipping it back. You can just put those pieces anywhere you want to once you have them with the repositionable glue. You might consider making a little board like this with all your pieces and elements and just save it for future cards. Gives you ideas. You can play with it. For example, that sun or the birds on blue, you could see what it would look like. The sun won't go on the water, but if that were sky, you could put the sun up in the sky, or you could put it on that piece. So, you know, it's a good thing to keep just for ideas for the next time you make this card. Now, I took the white Jelly Roll pen and just made lots of little dots along the edge, because you know how the ocean, when the water rushes up on the beach, you have that white foam that goes right up on the land. And then I drew some waves in the water, and it was kind of dark, so I just smeared it out with my finger and lightened it. And then went back with some highlights this is actually raw umber running around the edge of the coastline, and then just for some shadowing for the shorebirds, the bucket, all of the other things. Now this fits perfectly in an A7 card. Mine is a 5x7 card, and I just wanted to show you how nicely that fits. And then when they get it, you might have a word of explanation in there about how the card is interactive and can be flipped back and forth. So there are all the angles, what it looks like. I know I'm rushing through this, but I just didn't want you to have to look at too long of a video. I'm going to quickly do a little quote in brush lettering by Helen Keller about the shore. So I hope you enjoy. Thanks for joining me. And at the end, when this brush lettering is over, there are some other videos you might like to look at. So again, thanks for joining me. Have a wonderful day. See you next time. Bye-bye.